Hi, I'm Matt from Educraft.org and the counselor and curriculum writer for the Minecraft mod making camp. We've done a bunch of stuff already in these videos, and if you're a camper, you've done a bunch of stuff in your camp. And so now let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So today we're going to talk about items and blocks. So you're ready to get started modding, and usually people get started by making stuff to add to their world. And the stuff in Minecraft is either an item or a block. And the creation of them are very similar, although blocks have a few more steps than items. So I think we'll start with items and then move on to blocks. So here we go, how to create a Minecraft item. So with your items, you always start in this init package right here. It stands for initialization, and it just gets things going. So you get your crafting initialized, your blocks initialized, your items initialized. There's even a special class in your main, the initialization events, that you have your init and register files. Oh, they're even right here. This is the main class. And initialize and register the items and the blocks. So let's take a look at the items. So I already have a lot of stuff in here because what you get comes with a bunch of stuff to be good examples for you. So if you're trying to make a food item, you see, oh, this is how Matt made a food item. This is how Matt made a tool. This is how Matt made just a plain item. This is how Matt made armor. This is how Matt made material ingots. And this is how Matt made materials themselves. So you have tons of examples, and I've commented the absolute heck out of this. So if you read the comments associated with the examples, they should help explain things. But I'm not going to let that make me slack. I'm also going to make you a video that goes through it. So our simple one is we have the just a plain regular item. So what you do is you need to first create the variable for the item. And the variables just is what the game treats like the item itself, and then you have to sort of do things that describe the variable and help the game understand what this variable actually represents. And that's what a variable is. It's a thing that could be anything. And then in programming, you specify specifically what that is. So we have the class name up here, mod items, and we do our item variables up at the top. Generally. Now, it doesn't matter specifically where they go. I like to comment in little sections for them. So a section for just random items, a section for consumables, food, a section for tools, a section for armor, a section for stuff you use to make things out of, a section for materials. As long as you put it above this public static void init. This is a method. It's the initialization method, and you use it to create the actual instance of the item. And up here you sort of just say, hey, there's going to be this thing, it's called this, look out for it. And it's got to go on the other side of this, below this bracket, this curly bracket, because that's sort of the upper bounds of mod items. And you don't want to put it inside of a method, so you want to keep it above public static void init. And to be organized, I like to put it in special commented areas. So if you look right here, we have this item that's very creatively called item name. It's public because you need a bunch of different classes on this side to see it. It's static because you don't want this class to change it. And it's an item, and you say that with a capital I because capitalization matters in coding. So capital I item, saying, hey, this is also an item. And then you name it. I've given it the name item underscore name. In general, a good rule for variables is that they're all lowercase, and if there's two words, you put an underscore between them. That's typed shift minus, you get that underscore. And every line in code ends with a semicolon. So unless the line ends with a bracket, a closed bracket, where is it? Closed bracket? There's a closed bracket. Anything inside of that, or above it or below it, has to end in a semicolon. Look at all these semicolons. It's like my program is winking at me. All right. And look, I got these comments explaining what the classes are all about. You're welcome. All right, so you create the variable and you make the computer aware, hey, there's this new thing and it's called this. Now you go into this init, which stands for initialization, and this is what you run in your main folder when you want the game to actually say, oh, this is going to be a usable thing for me. So, oh, it's right here. I have the variable name, item underscore name, all lowercase, just like I named it up here, item underscore name. And I'm going to say, hey, this represents a new instance of this thing, this class called item name. Now, when you type that in, the computer doesn't know the class and what it is. Now, you're not going to see it freaking out. If you do something wrong, you see some red X's appear on the side. You're not going to see that right now because I've already done everything. But let me give you an example. I'm just going to say public static item fudge. Okay, and I scroll down and I say, hey, computer, you know what fudge is? A new example of item fudge. And your computer's going to say, well, I get what you're going for, but I have no idea what this item fudge is. And so when you get a red X, but it's got a little light bulb behind it, your computer's basically saying, hey, I have this idea of what you might be trying to do. Why don't you take my advice? So you click on it, and hey, it's right. It says, well, you got this variable here, and that makes sense. But you're saying it's a new instance of this class called item fudge, but there's no such thing as that class. So you're like, all right, well, hey, let's make it a class. So you're going to create a class called item fudge. You're not going to put it in the init. That's not a good place to store item classes. The best place to store item classes is in your package called item classes. And it's going to go there. And oh, look, we have this new class that I'm going to immediately delete because I only intended this as an example for this video. But if you see that, you're on the right course. So you see it's a class. It's this thing called item fudge. Life pro tip, when you name your class, you don't use, unlike variables, which are all lowercase, and use underscores to separate the words. Classes have capitalized the first letter of each word, and they don't need underscores because you know it's a new word because the first letter is capitalized. And also, classes start out with what kind of thing this thing is. So if it's an item, you call it item whatever, and if it's a block, you call it block whatever. Life pro tip, that's the name of classes, and it's also a good naming convention for registry names, but I'll get to that later. In the meantime, let's get back to item name. So this is what the class for, if you do the exact same thing for item name, you end up with a class like this. Item name extends item, and then after that you type in what's called a constructor, and that's a method that tells you exactly what this item's all about. What is the DAO of this item? How does it work? Where does it go? A lot of that is just helping the item register with Minecraft. So it needs to be public because a lot of things need to see it. This class is public. It's important for things to be public in this case. And then it's item name, and look, you have these parentheses next to it, and that says, hey, this is a method. Then you create these curly brackets because when you have information for methods and information for classes, it needs to exist between two curly brackets. Okay, because you're going to put multiple lines of information inside of these things. Semicolons tell you the end of the line. Curly brackets is when something involves multiple lines. First off, you're going to do a thing called set unlocalized name. Capitalizations matter. So see, this is an uppercase U and an uppercase N, and it starts in a lowercase. You put it inside of parentheses, and then it's a thing called a string, so it's inside quotation marks. And then you name it, you give it an unlocalized name, which is just sort of what the game calls the item when it appears in the game. And just like the variable, unlocalized name generally is all lowercase with an underscore to separate them. And look, I put a comment here. This uses a method created in yeah. So, wait, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to delete that. Boom, you have an unlocalized name. Next up, you set your registry name, capital R, capital N, and it's also a string, so it's in quotes and it's in these parentheses. And in this case, it's a lot like naming the class. You say what kind of thing it is. This is an item, not a block. So you say item, and then you just say name, sort of what you call your item. Okay? Don't forget to add the semicolons at the end of these lines. Next up is set creative tab. That tells you where you want to find this item when you're playing in creative mode. So that, you know, when you're in creative mode, you have a huge inventory and there's lots of different tabs. You want to explicitly say which creative tab this goes in. So you type set creative tab, capital C, capital T, lowercase s, and then in parentheses, creative tabs. Notice there's an S here and there's no S here. Okay, so set creative tab, but then creative tabs. Okay, and the cool thing about creative tabs is when you have that creative tabs, once you hit the period, you get a drop-down menu. So you don't even have to think about it, and you search for where you want it. Like if it's a sword, you put it in combat. If it's like a fancy block for building, you put it in building blocks. If it's food, you put it in food. And I like to put this in miscellaneous because it doesn't really do anything. Another thing you have is the option of putting it in its own special tab. So this mod, this code already comes with a special tab. Just put it in, and so if you want it to be put in that special extra tab, type main dot creative underscore tab, and this is weird because it's all capitalization. It's kind of a convention for things called constants to be in all caps in Java, and creative tab, that is a constant. So if you want it to put in your special tab for this mod, that's what you do. I don't want it there, so I'm going to change it back. Creative tabs dot miscellaneous. All right. This other thing that goes this dot set full 3D, capital F, and then you put your parentheses, nothing in there, and a colon. It looks nice when your character holds it, so I like to do it. And I did this stupid thing at the bottom. I don't really recommend you do this for all of your items, but in case you create a bucket of something and you use it for crafting and you think you should get the bucket back when you're done, you use this dot set container item, capital C, capital I, and you sort of set what you get back when you use this item. For example, if you make a cake with a bucket of milk and you put that in the crafting menu, when you're done, you get an empty bucket back because you don't actually use the bucket to make the cake, it's the milk that it was holding. So this set container item is used for instances where you have the item in a container, and then when you craft with the item, you should get the empty container back. So if this were the item bucket of milk, I would say this dot set container, and I would get an empty bucket back. Okay, in this case, I'm giving myself my own item back because this item, when you craft with it, you get it back because, I don't know, it's stupid. The fun thing about mods is mods are stupid, and it's fun to sort of be stupid. I like stupidity. I think it's fun. All right, so that's how we do items, and now we're going to move on to how we do blocks. So get ready because it's really similar, so be prepared for repetition. I'm going to skip through some of the stuff that's pretty much the same, and I'm going to focus more on the things that are different. So here we go. So you're going to find, just like with you did mod items for items in your init package, you're going to do mod blocks for blocks. Yeah. And, oh, that's not there anymore. Go away. And you're going to give your block a variable name. So in the same way we did the case study with item name, let's do the case study with block name. It's public static, just like last time, only instead of item, you say block, and it's got a capital B, letting us know that this variable is going to be a block called block name. Same rules for variable names, lowercase underscore with a semicolon. And the variable name goes underneath the squiggly line after mod blocks, after the name of the class, but it's got to be above any of the other methods, things with these parentheses in their own squirrely brackets that are below it. It's got to go at the top. Okay, and I put little comments here. If you still have those comments there, then go by the comments. Okay, and just like with items, you basically create a class for block name. So block name equals new block name, and oh look, parentheses, semicolon, and you'll get the same song and dance. It'll go, what the heck's a block name? And you'll say, oh, and you'll click on it, you go create class block name, and you'll put it in the package. Instead of putting it in the item classes package, you'll change the package to being in org.educraft.mymod.block classes. And so let's take a look at our block name class. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a little different. So block name extends block, and if it says that, you're doing all right. You're going to add your constructor method, public block name with the parentheses, and then its own little squiggly bracket. And then you're going to say what the block is made out of, because these parentheses are empty a lot, but ideally there's things called arguments that go in there. They're just little features that this method uses. And typically the block method uses features that include what the block is made out of. And so sometimes you'll put your arguments in here, but if you do this super thing, if you type super, that tells you, oh, well, we want the arguments to really come from block, but here's something special. So you tell it the material that you want your block to be made out of. And when you list materials, you have to actually type with a capital M, material, and then a dot, and you should get a pull down. Let me try that again. Dot. Dot. SDF. Material dot. Ah, there we go. And you pick what it is, and this really just determines like what works against the block. So like if it's rock, and pickaxes are going to work better than axes, blah blah blah, a little bit of behavior. If it's just a standard block, I recommend something like wood, sand, stone, some typical block thing. I like it made out of cake because I'm a weirdo. Then you, just like items, you do unlocalized name and registry name. Set unlocalized name, set registry name. Notice capital U, capital N, capital R, capital N, and in parentheses you put quotes because it's what we call a string, meaning it's like a chunk of text that the game just sort of copies and pastes around things. And for the unlocalized name, it's all lowercase with an underscore. And with the registry name, it's you begin each word with uppercase. You don't need an underscore, and you never want to use a space for these things. And while there's not a lot of difference here, if your set unlocalized name was just like, I don't know, like Smithy or, I don't know, Teapot, you would always want your registry name to begin with block and then whatever it is. In this case, it's pretty similar to the unlocalized names. And then you set creative tabs. In this case, I put it in building blocks. So you find it in building block in your creative tabs. Now, one thing that's different than the items is you have these other features. So one thing you can do, by all means, when you create your own block class, just go to block name, copy this, highlight this, right click, go to copy, and just paste it in. Paste it inside of your constrictor or constructor, and then set it yourself, or just, you know, retype everything from scratch, because that's easy. So hardness is sort of how hard it is to break the block. So while there are items that work against the block and items that don't, blocks still have a natural hardness to them. In the comments I note that stone is 1.5 and dirt is 0.5. I set this block between those at 1.0, and you'll notice it ends in an F. That means that it is a float. In computers, if it's a number with a decimal in it or a number without a decimal, that matters. Numbers without decimals are called integers, and numbers with decimals are called floats. And if it expects a float, it better be a float. So set hardness expects a float. So even if you want it to be 1, 2, 3 with no decimal, you still have to say 0.0, and it has to end with F. Set resistance, that it sets resistance to explosions, and it has to be at least the value of its hardness, if not more. So I set it at 1.0, and I put F because it's a float. I have this set sound type, and I just have it sound like metal. So when you walk on it, it sounds like metal. And just like a lot of things, when you have Forge and Eclipse working together, if you type sound type dot it'll give you a drop-down menu. So let me give you an example. Sound type dot, and I'm going to call it metal because I don't want to change. I hate change. Set light level is how much the block glows. So I want this to just be a void. Just, you know, if it's like a wall or something like that, it's not going to glow at all. You know, like redstone blocks glow a lot. I once made a TARDIS block and I give it a little bit of glow, but it's generally between 0 and 1.0. It's got to have a decimal and it's got to end in F because it expects a float. And here we have one that's not a float, light opacity. This is how much the block stops light. So the higher the number, the less light goes through the block. And it's a value between 0 and 15. 0 lets like all light through, 15 lets no light through. If it's a good solid object, I set it at 15. If it's like kind of translucent, like I don't know, a shower curtain, it might be like a 5. So I type this dot set light opacity 15, and notice there's no decimal, there's no F. That means it's an integer. It expects an integer, so you better give it an integer. That is a whole number with no decimals. Okay, sorry this video is so long. Just one quick thing before we go, should only take a few minutes, so bear with me, we're almost done. You won't see items appearing in your game yet, and so this next step for both, it's pretty much the same for both your items and your blocks, is what really clinches the deal. So here we go. Alright, so now you're going to go back to your mod items, and last we saw it, you were in the init method. We're going to scroll down into the register method. So any new item you make, you have to register it with the game registry. That's a necessary step, and in fact, if you have an item that's not that, if you have this item variable that acts like an item but it's not an item, your game will crash. And if you try to run it, it'll fall apart. So you need to create a line, game registry, capital G, capital R, dot, register, all lowercase, and then in parentheses, you give it you put the variable, in this case, item underscore name. See, look at the variable, item underscore name. So it goes there, and then it all has to end in a semicolon. Okay, so that's how you put it in the game registry, and then you scroll down, and you have that says, hey, there's an item, and let's put it on the list of items. You also have this other method called register renders. So we made a register render method already that exists here, and what it does is it sort of takes the input of the item variable and it does all the things that tells the game, hey, you should expect there to be a texture for this, and so get ready for that. And so what you should do is in the register renders method, you will say register render, and look, it's a lowercase r for register, uppercase R for render, because you're calling this method right here. And then you call that method on your item. So you give the item variable, in parentheses, item underscore name, it's the item variable, and you end in a semicolon. All of your items that you make in the game, that you give it a variable, you give it an item variable. In the init, you call it with a class, and then you register the item, and you put it in your register renders. And look, if you look at your main, you see, oh yeah, look, the register's here, the init's here, and it's actually the proxies that have the register renders because it's how we work with single player multiplayer. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's look at the mod blocks. It's pretty much the same thing. You create a variable for it. In the init, you associate it with a class, and then you put it in the register. In this case, it's called register block, register lowercase, then capital B block, and you see the item variable. And then you get into your register renders, and just like with the item, you type register render, lowercase r, uppercase r, lowercase r register, uppercase R render, and then in the parentheses, well, we're doing the block name, you would say the variable name, and then you end with a semicolon. And then the item should appear in the game. You haven't uploaded textures or JSON files, so the item will look stupid. It'll look like a purple and black checkered block. So what you do is you compile and run your code in the game by you go up to this green button with a white play sign, and look, it has a little pop-up thing that says run client. And if you click on that, and it usually saves, you'll actually start running Minecraft, and you can always check your progress by running that. FYI, here it goes. And yeah, it goes through all this stuff, and yeah, every time you change anything in Eclipse, you have to completely restart Minecraft. So that means you completely close out of the game and restart it anytime you change anything in your code. Sorry, I know it's a pain in the butt. But Minecraft loads. Don't do multiplayer. That's not good for testing your mods. Do single player. Textures don't work in multiplayer. Just don't do it. So you click on single player, you'll create a game. I always, when I create a new world and you're testing it, it's always should be creative. You can enter cheat codes in creative, and you can always use a cheat code to change the game to survival, to test survival stuff. But don't start the game off in survival to test your mods. It's just not good game developing strategy. Okay? So that's it. You should see some items in your game. They'll look stupid, but they're there. And we'll do textures in the next video. So yeah, you got some ugly items that you don't want to look at. They look like purple and black chessboards that are cubed. Yeah, okay. Don't worry. We're going to fix that next video when we go over JSON files and your texture files, your little PNG pictures that you use to make the texture. So yeah, don't worry, your items will be looking spiffy in no time. See you next time.